friends, Tiffany Dawn here, and welcome back to another Dreamers video. This is Dreamers 103, and today I want to talk about how to say no. I used to struggle with saying no. I wanted to just say yes to everything and make everybody like me, and I want to tell you today why no is my new favorite word. I love saying no. I'll just say it all the time because I love it, because it sets me free in so many ways. And I'm gonna tell you about that today. So give this video a thumbs up if you like it, hit subscribe if you haven't already and wanna see more videos like this, and please do comment below. What has your experience been with saying no? And if you stay to the end, I have a new Bible reading plan that you can do in 10 minutes a day this summer to get into the book of John, so stay to the end to hear about that. The first thing I had to learn was how to think about no as actually being yes. I think it was actually John Maxwell's book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, that taught me about the power of no. So basically there's only so many hours you have in a day, there's only so much energy we have, and so every time we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else. And in the same way, anytime we say no to something, we're saying yes to something else, whether that's just more time in our day or whether that's something else that we want to invest our time and energy in. That was a powerful shift in my thinking. So then instead of thinking, I'm saying no to so many things, I could be like, I'm actually saying yes to so many other things. And that led me to the second thing I had to learn, which was learning how to decide what things deserved a yes and what deserved a no. So basically, I started to say, okay, what has God called me to in my life? And for me, a lot of that is really ministering to other women. And so then when opportunities would come, I'd start to look at them and how they fit into what God had called me to do. Now, there are times when we need to do something that we don't feel like doing, and it doesn't necessarily fit into our overall life vision. I have to clean my bathroom at home. It's just gotta be done. Someone has to do it. I have to wash my dishes. It's not like those are a way I minister to women, but in a sense they are, I guess, because then when I have Bible study, the girls who come don't feel like my bathroom is disgusting. But it's not like, nope, I'm not going to help on the yard work committee because I don't want to. If it really needs to be done, then I should chip in and help out if I can. But kind of the perspective I'm coming from is a person who just says yes to everything. And it's just like, sure, yeah, I can do that. I can do that too. I can do that too. And that's not a great way to be, because then all your time is filled with stuff that just exhausts you and you don't have the energy to do what you were actually made to do. Does that make sense? I try to, pray about it and think like, God, is this something that I should do? But at the end of the day, if I don't feel like God's putting it in my heart and convicting me like, yes, this is a way you need to serve, I'll kind of look at the opportunity and say, does this fit into what God has called me to do? So start asking God, pray about each opportunity, but also ask God, what are the things that you've really put in my heart to do? What makes me come alive when I do it? What do I just love doing? What do I feel like, wow, God is really using me in this way? And then start to kind of strategically say your yeses to things that fit into what God's called you to do and say your no's to things that don't. The third thing I had to learn was that when I said no, that was actually a yes for somebody else. So a few years ago, I quit my job because I wanted to be able to travel and speak more often. And then kind of nothing happened. And I was in this very stagnant place and just kind of waiting, being like, okay, God, what do I do next? And during that time, my church asked if I would come and work with them as their co-youth pastor. So they had a lot of really great guy leaders, but they didn't have a lot of really great girl leaders. And so I was really torn about this decision because I was like, should I do this? This is definitely up my alley of things that I want to do in my life, but I don't think it's quite right. And I really wrestled with it. And I finally had to say, I don't think it's me. I can't do this. I said no, and within a matter of 2 or 3 weeks, this opportunity opened up for me to start traveling around the US and speaking full time, which I did for the next 4 years. And I was like, I'm so glad I said no to this, because now I have room to say yes to the thing that God has given me to do. So it's amazing already, but then what makes it even more amazing is, so I left, I went on tour for that year, I came back the following year, reconnected with the pastor who ran all the children's and students ministries, and I was talking to her about this, and I was like, so what'd you end up doing? She's like, well, honestly, when you said you couldn't do it, we had no idea what we would do, because we didn't have anybody else to ask. And she's like, but then God raised up 12 other girls who were a little younger than you, and they could each do a small part of what you would have done. And we were able to mentor them and raise them up, and they were able to use the gifts God had given them. So basically what she told me was that my no was a yes for 12 other people. And I thought that was the coolest thing. Like when we're saying no, it might at first be like, well, who else is gonna do it? But whenever there's that void of a leadership there, it's the opportunity for other people who've not been able to step into that leadership role to then be able to step into that leadership role, which is really cool. Or to step into any role. It doesn't even have to be quote unquote traditional leadership. I think there's a lot of times when we get this, or at least I get this like hero complex, like, but if I don't do it, who else is going to? But it's not like we're the only person who can do something. That's just like thinking more highly of ourselves than we ought to. I mean, you even look at Esther in the Bible, and her uncle Mordecai comes to her and he's like, who knows but that God has put you in this position as queen for such a time as this to save his people. But if you don't do it, God will raise up somebody else to do it, and you and your father's house will perish. And it's like, that was her mission from God, but it wasn't like she was the only person who could have done it. And that takes a lot of pressure off too. So now when I say no, I'm like, this is actually going to be an opportunity for somebody else. So the fourth thing that I had to think about was, why do I not want to say no? Like, why do I just want to say yes to everything? And I realized a lot of it comes down to me being afraid of what people are going to think about me. It's like I wanted to make everybody happy, and I wanted to get the affirmation of people by just saying yes to everything, because then they'd affirm me more and be like, wow, you're such an amazing Christian and person. And I realized that those were not good reasons to say yes to things. Like, there are times when I want to say no to something that God convicts me and is like, no, actually, you need to do that. Cleaning the bathrooms or washing the dishes, or at church serving in this way that I wouldn't necessarily want to. That's one thing if God's convicting you to do it. But a lot of times that wasn't my reason for saying yes. A lot of times my reason for saying yes was simply selfish. Like, I wanted them to think well of me. And that's just not a good enough reason. So I would encourage you to start asking yourself, like, why do I want to say yes? Like, what makes it hard to say no? And just kind of talk to God about that. Maybe even talk to some mentors about that. And then the fifth thing was actually being able to say no. And what I found was just to be really honest, but really graceful, and just, you know, thank you so much for asking me. Like, I really appreciate that. Right now, I really don't think this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I've, you know, thought about it, prayed about it. It just doesn't fit in with what God's given me to do right now. And then if I know somebody else who I think would be a great fit, I'll recommend them. And if I don't, I'll offer to be praying that they can find somebody to help. And yeah, it can be a little awkward at first, especially if you're someone who always says yes and they're like, why is this person saying no to me? Like, who have they become? But I think it's worth it. It's worth the awkwardness. And if you're just very kind about it, it's usually well received. At least that's what I have found personally. And then the final thing that I had to learn how to do was manage the guilt afterwards. Because and this still happens to me, especially if it's just somebody I really care about, if I need to say no to them. I'd feel so guilty afterwards, and I overanalyze it, and I'm just like, did I make the right decision? Like, what should I do? Like, oh my goodness. And I just agonize over it. And that takes a lot of energy that I was meaning to save by saying no, and instead I'm spending it on worrying, you know? So I think what has helped me is having somebody that I talk to about my decision first. So my husband is the main person for me, and I'll talk it through with him and say, do you think this is the right decision to make? And we'll kind of get on the same page. And then I'll say no. And then afterwards, if I'm feeling guilty, I can come back to him and be like, did I make the right decision? Like, what do you think? And he can kind of encourage me in that. So having that person is really helpful. It can be a mentor or a family member. And it also can be helpful to talk to the person that you said no to. If they're giving you a guilt trip, it can be helpful to be like, hey, I'm noticing right now that I'm feeling really guilted about my decision to say no. Can we talk about this? And just kind of have that discussion. And maybe they're feeling hurt because you said no. So you can talk that through and let them know, I love you and I care about you and what you're doing so much. It's just, I can't do this right now. And I think that can help a lot. So I hope that those 6 things that have helped me can help you as well. And comment below what else helps you when it comes to saying no. And have you had any experiences like I had where it was just like, wow, thank God I said no. Like, this ended up being such a good thing. I would love to hear your thoughts and your stories. And speaking of saying no and saying yes, something we should always be making a yes in our lives is our time with God. In the summer, I find it so much harder to stay on top of my devotions because it's like a flexible schedule and there's so much going on. So I've created this Bible reading plan for the summer that's like 10 minutes a day, and it goes really deep into John. So if you want to check it out, I have it in the download link below. It's 99 cents. It's like a little PDF file, and I think that that can be really helpful for you guys. So thank you so much for being with me today, and I can't wait to see you again on Friday. Love you guys. Bye.